center of the screen and you see everyone else just sort of tiny. And the other is gallery view, where you can see everyone. If you want it to be speaker view, like you said, the person speaking at the center of the screen, go to the top, run your mouse up to the top of your screen, and there's a little icon that should say either speaker view or gallery view. Click on that and it'll switch. You can toggle it between the two options. And so you can try it out. Do you like to see everyone? Do you like to mostly just see the person speaking? You can try those two options. The other thing to point out, if you haven't really used Zoom before, is because there are so many people on this call, which is so amazing, you can sometimes hear background noise from different people. So the best way to do this, and I see most of you already are, is to mute yourself when you're not talking. You can do that by scrolling your mouse all the way to the opposite corner, to the bottom left corner. You'll see the microphone button, mute or unmute. The best thing you can do is keep yourself muted, but then of course, when you want to talk and participate, you'll unmute yourself and speak then. The other thing you should know is that there's a chat bar. So where you see mute, if you scroll over towards the right, you'll see a little chat icon. And if you click on that, it'll open up on the side of the screen. There's a chat bar. So you can see a couple people, Debbie, Hazan, Mimi, Michelle, a couple of people have already written messages to everyone. You can write a message just to one person or to everyone. So if you have a question and you don't want to interrupt the flow of the class, but you have a quick question, you can type it in the chat there. So I hope that helps everyone, whether you've used Zoom or not. And I'm so excited to learn from Alicia and Ben. So I'm gonna turn it over to them now, and I'm gonna mute myself.
Thank you, Rabbi Galko. That was a perfect introduction, and hopefully you all followed everything that she went through, and you have the view that you want, and you see the chat, and feel free to post your questions in the chat at any time. So we know that the two big concerns that a lot of you are here for are, number one, you want to host some sort of a virtual Seder with an extended family or friends or something like that, and you want to know how you're going to do it. Or number two, you have no exact plans right now and you're just trying to figure that out, and maybe we can just give you some ideas for hosting your own Seder if you've never had to host your own Seder before. So I'm going to start with all of the sort of the technical background to give you an idea of how you can actually host a virtual Seder in something like Zoom. And then I'll turn it over to Alicia and she'll talk about some creative ideas for your Seder. So I am going to attempt to share my screen. And I'll tell you something real quick. I was at my computer at my desk in my office at home, and I tried to do this and it crashed my computer in my office. So now I'm in my bedroom on my laptop, and so it's sort of like a plan B here. But so here, hopefully you can see my screen. And now that I'm sharing this, I have very little capability to see everybody else. So I don't really know what's going on in the room, but hopefully you can see my screen. And this document that we're sharing right here, we are going to make available to you. So you don't need to be taking copious notes as we're going through this. You can just sort of follow along and listen and read. And then we're going to share this as a PDF. We're going to be putting all of these resources on our website. They're not up there yet. We're still sort of finalizing them, but they will be up there by tomorrow. And we'll also send out an email to the entire congregation with the link to this document and links to some of the other things that we're talking about. So just sort of follow along and try to have fun. I'm going to start with actually the last bullet point on here first, because I think it's the most important one. If you're really concerned about this, if you're hosting a Seder, you're going to be the person who's running the Seder. That doesn't mean that you have to be the person who's running the digital hosting, the digital platform. Okay, if you are not so great with technology, but you have your family coming and your son or your grandson or your daughter or your niece or any of these people are better with technology, you can ask them to set it all up. A lot of people are using digital technologies like Zoom or Google Hangouts in work and in school, and they might already have accounts that are capable of hosting your Seder. And that would take a lot of the stress out of the situation. So feel free to reach out to one of them and ask them if they can set up something for you. And then you don't even need to worry about pretty much this entire top section. But let's go back up here and we're going to start from the top. Number one, we had started researching digital platforms, and then we realized that like every other synagogue and every other organization is also doing the same thing. And we found that at seder2020.org, I'm going to open this up and hopefully you can see it. They have already done research and they've compiled a full list of the different platforms, and they give you pros and cons and how much it costs and details about how you can log in and create your account. So the one that we're using right now is Zoom, and it's wonderful and it's free, but there are limitations that you can only do it for 40 minutes at a time. So if you're creating a free account and you just want to keep it free, then you might be forced to end your meeting and restart your meeting a minute later, which is just sort of a burden, but it's not the end of the world. I've talked to some other people who have tried to use Zoom, the free version of Zoom, and they said that they were able to use it for an extended period of time, because we know that Zoom, as part of this whole coronavirus thing, has offered educational institutions and nonprofits the to have extended meetings without paying for it. So you might be able to create an account and do that, but I can't make any promises. Otherwise, I believe it's about $15 a month. And if you just want to sign up for 1 month and do that, that might be a good option. Google Meet is also a very good option because it's totally free and it's built into Gmail. And everybody that has a Gmail account or a YouTube account or anything like that already has their own Google account. So you would just be starting a meeting and then inviting all of your family and friends who are already in your Google or Gmail address book and adding them to the meeting. There are some instructions here on this page that you can try to set up your own Google Hangout, and then a tutorial here. FaceTime, if you both have iPhones and you just want to have it between a couple of people, FaceTime is a good option. WebEx is another good system. It's very similar to Zoom and it's great for hosting big meetings, so you can look into that one too. I would spend a little bit of time just sort of looking through those options and deciding what's best for you, because it's really hard for us. It's hard for us to support an 890 member synagogue and try to get all of you set up individually. So we need you to try to do as much of the legwork as you can. But if you get totally stuck and you have nobody else to turn to, no relatives or friends who might be able to help you, then you can certainly ask us. But those are our suggestions, and that website has a lot of the information that you're going to need. Now, here are our tips for making sure that you are successful at your Seder. Number one, make sure that everybody, once you pick the platform that you're going to use, make sure that everybody signs up or installs the platform, the software that they need to ahead of time, and that you do a quick test of it. So you send out, we're going to do Zoom. Everybody, here's the link for the Zoom meeting that we're going to have for the Seder night. We're going to start it at 7 p.m. Try to set up just a 5-minute test where you and they both meet in a Zoom meeting room, which is totally free to do, and make sure that your webcams are working and that they have installed the software, or it's an app on your phone or an app on your iPad. You can use pretty much any system that you want to use, but test it ahead of time so that at 7 p.m. on the first Seder night, you're not trying to troubleshoot and getting frustrated, and we just want to start, and now we're going to not eat until 11 o'clock. You don't want any of that to be happening. So test it ahead of time so that you can all log in at 6:55 and you're all good to go at 7. Have a plan for your device. You don't want to be sitting there with your cell phone in your hand for 2 hours because your arm is going to get very tired. So ideally, use something like a laptop, and make sure that it's plugged in. Make sure whatever you're using have a power source for it, because this will drain your battery very quickly. Put a laptop on your table. You can use an HDMI cord to connect most laptops can connect to a TV, and then you can sit around the TV and have a nice big picture and good sound. Even some cell phones, you're able to get an adapter to connect it to a TV. You can use AirPlay to go from an Apple device to an Apple TV. There are all sorts of different options connecting to a TV, so that's a very good option. And if you are, whether you're using an iPad or a phone or a computer, have a plan for where you're going to put it. Like maybe if you're going to be sitting at your table the entire time, then ahead of time, sit down at the table, a day before, sit down at the table, put it on the table and see how it looks. See if you can see both of you. Maybe you need to adjust where you're sitting. Maybe you need to move it back. Maybe you need to move it forward. Just have a plan for that. There are all sorts of, if you're using an iPad or a phone, there are all sorts of tripod mounts. And I don't know if you can see my video right now, but I'm holding up a little mount that you can put your phone into, and then it holds your phone and it connects to any kind of a tripod. So the same tripod that you use to put your video camera on, or your big, whatever kind of camera you want, or you can go online and you can search for other types of tripod mounts. I'm holding in my hand like a clip-on tripod mount. So you just clip it onto something and then the phone sits up here and you can move it around and it's very easy. They make tabletop tripods. So I don't know if Amazon's going to be able to deliver anything like that to you by this time next week, but maybe Best Buy or other online stores other than Amazon are fulfilling orders quickly enough that you can go and just Google tripod mount and cell phone holder and those sorts of things. You'll be able to find things. Next one, log into your Seder early. Like I said, if you're starting at 7 o'clock, don't log in at 7 o'clock, because if you have a problem, you want to have a few minutes to fix it. So log in maybe at 6:45, plan on everybody meeting at 6:45 in the chat room, and then at 7 o'clock you can actually begin. Now, as Rabbi Galko explained at the beginning, when we're all unmuted, it becomes very garbled. The video jumps around to different people, and there's a lag. And the lag is the reason why we say if you're singing or if you're reading together, mute everybody except for one leader. And that way you're all listening to the leader, you're all speaking or singing with the leader, but you don't get this lag and delay going back and forth, and then everybody's at a different place and it just sounds really bad. So everybody stay muted except for the one person who is talking or leading. And then you can always mute the leader and unmute the next person for them to share. That's not a problem. And then, as I said, the last point there is the Seder host doesn't have to be the tech host. So if any of this, a lot of these tips are hopefully going to help everybody who's attending the Seder. But if you are still totally lost when I shared that list of platforms, talk to somebody else who's coming to your Seder and see if they'll do it. So that hopefully gets you started with the technology. If there are any questions, I'm actually going to unshare my screen because I can't see anybody while I'm doing this. If there are any questions, and I couldn't see the chat either, why don't you go ahead and type them into the chat on the right-hand side, and we can try to answer them. You couldn't see the tripod here. Now that I'm not sharing my screen. So this is the tripod mount. So my phone just fits right into this, and then I tighten it. And I can attach it. On the bottom is the connector that I can attach to any tripod. This is the same type of connector that you would find on any kind of tripod, and they just fit together. And then this holds up my phone, and I can direct it anywhere that I want it to. So if there are no other questions, you could certainly ask questions later. I'll turn it over to Alicia, who's going to take us through the next part of our session, and I will reshare my screen.
Thanks, Ben. So I'm going to talk now more about what are different things we can do in preparing for the Seder and in getting our guests ready for doing a Seder in such a different way than we've normally or have done in the past. So the first thing you want to think about as you're sending out invitations and sending out the information and getting people set up on whatever technology you choose to use and testing that out is also to kind of plan a timeline, because the ideal is that you'll be eating at the same time. And so you want all the food to be ready. You don't want, someone's chicken to get dried out because it's sitting in the oven too long. And then you're going to think about what you would normally put on your Seder table. Some people who are going to be coming to my Zoom Seder next week, who have been to my Seder in person before, have asked, well, are you going to send us a list? What are the things that we should prepare? So there's a couple different pieces. Some of that is the ritual objects. having the Seder plate, what are the different things are that go on a Seder plate, and making sure there's matzah and there's wine or juice. And so, and remember also that not everyone might have a Seder plate. Our argument here is that you don't actually need a Seder plate. Truthfully, you just need a plate and the ritual objects. But especially if you have families with kids, you might send them a picture, or anyone really, you can send them a picture. If there's kids that are in a home that's going to be joining you, maybe they can decorate one. It's a great project. I have a 4-year-old. I'm always looking for projects for him right now while there's no school. And that way people can feel like they have a place where they are that feels special, feels different. Maybe ask everyone to, set their table nicely as if they're hosting. And one of the things you can do at the beginning of your Seder is share what your tables look like and how things look differently. So the next big piece of that is in the preparation is your Haggadah. What book are you going to be using to use your, to plan through what you're going to be saying and doing and singing and everything during the Seder. So one option is to send the same Haggadah to everyone. Another option is to have different people bring what they are used to or what they have at home and use those. So we have lots of links for you. One of them is for the Temple Aliyah preschool Haggadah that we've created a couple of years ago, which is at kidshaggadah.com. Then click through so you can see the website right now. And what's great is we have available here both the PDF of the book itself, and people can print it out if they want to in advance. And in here, we also have links to listen to recordings that our Hazanim have recorded for some of the different pieces of this particular Haggadah. In our resource page that we're hoping to have live on our website no later than tomorrow, we're going to have other recordings as well. I'm going to talk more about how we can use those recordings in a minute. Another really amazing resource is a website called Haggadot.com. There are tons of different Haggadot already put together on there, and all you have to do is download the PDF. You can also use their system to put together your own Haggadah. So there's information about, there's all this information with different suggestions for different types of Seders and different things to add, and you can put that together. But as you see down here where I've been scrolling, there are already several put together, and you can just use one of those that's already ready. The next step after that is to prepare. You want to think through, you want to read through the Haggadah you've chosen and know what sections you want to really spend your time on. Maybe you're from a family who's used to going for hours and hours and hours, and you're going to read every single word, and that's great, but that's not where all of us are. So you want to be able to think about what are the sections you want to focus on most, and where are the areas you might want to add in to the conversation. This is an incredible opportunity to get creative. We'll have a link for you for something called the Pardes Interactive Seder, which has some really interesting ways to make the whole Seder more interactive. There's a lot of opportunities to create options for how people might want to participate. And of course, we want to ask a lot of questions. Passover, is we all think about the 4 questions, right? Mani Shana, but there are so many other opportunities to ask questions about Passover, about how it relates to our lives now, and connect different things as you're going through the Seder. One of the things to focus on also is to tell the story. That's the purpose of having a Seder, right? Is that we're told to come together every year and tell the story so that we never forget the story of the Exodus. And there are a lot of themes to look at throughout that story. So that's another area to think about in advance. What are the parts of the Passover story that you want to be highlighting this year? So as I mentioned earlier, when we looked at the kidshaggadah.com, there are links in that Haggadah with different music or the songs as you go through the Seder. We also have a link that's here and that we'll add on our website that's going to bring you to a lot of other recordings that Hazan Mimi and Hazan Stein have created and made, so that if you get to a point in the Seder and you don't remember the melody, you can push play and sing along. Or if you're preparing and you realize you don't quite remember and you want to practice in advance, you have all of these available here to you so that you can practice and be familiar and comfortable with it. So as we're preparing, this is an incredible opportunity to connect with community in a way we never have before. I think that's something that the last couple of weeks have shown us, is that we're connecting with our community members in so many different ways, and in some ways more than we have when we can be in person. So we have found this incredible opportunity. I'm going to talk about the second piece first, and I'm going to come back to the first one. Talk to people who you know who are hosting their own seders. Check in with friends. Find out what people are interested in, or share ideas. We've also created this incredible corkboard that's going to be posted on our website. Ben, do we have the ability to show it here?
I don't have it open because I had to move over to my laptop, so I don't have it right now. But if you go to our Facebook page, I did post a link to it with a sample question on it. And at the end of this, if you hang on at the end of our session, then in the chat, I'll post a link to it. I just need to find it after I'm done screen sharing.
Great, thanks, Ben. So what we're gonna do is create a few of these different, it literally looks like a cork board, and you can add a Post-it note. We're gonna have different ones set up with questions that are gonna be an opportunity to share different ideas. We're also gonna look at ways to share recipes. So if you're inviting people to join your virtual Seder who come to your Seder at your house every year, and you know that they love your brisket or your matzo ball soup or whatever it is, share those recipes. Ask the people coming and joining you to share their recipes with your other guests. We're also, both on our resource page and on our Facebook page, going to create opportunities for people to share recipes. We are working with one of our members who's a chef and a nutritionist. She's already created a great video on her brisket recipe. She's also going to do one with the chicken recipe. And there's a lot of other recipes that we want to share, whether they're just in print or with video, that are going to be available both for you and our community, but it'd also be an opportunity for you to share your recipes with each other and with your guests. So one of the trickiest pieces of the Seder, as we thought about how to do this in a virtual manner, is how to do your afikoman hunt, right? When you hide the half of the middle piece of the matzah, and then in order to finish dinner, you have to find it and eat it, right? You can't have dessert without it. So we're coming up with some creative different ways for you. We're going to be creating a Where's Waldo type graphic with the afikoman hidden in it that you can share just as we're sharing this, and whoever finds it first wins. You can have a treasure hunt or a scavenger hunt and have someone who's coming create an opportunity or create the clues. And maybe it's a scavenger hunt of things that people generally would have in their homes. So whoever's leading this piece can ask the questions, and people have to run around and grab the things and bring them to the table and show them to the video. BBYO, a National Youth Group, has something, a digital afikoman hunt. We don't know anything about it yet because it's not gone live yet, but I trust that it's going to be something really interesting. And if we have other resources that we come across or that we're able to create, we're also going to post those on our website resource page. Another really integral part of a Seder, I think, is how everyone who is there participates. So take the time when you're preparing to think about what the different jobs are, whether it's asking someone to create an afikoman scavenger hunt, thinking about who's going to sing the 4 questions, asking people to think about in advance a certain question that you're going to have them share about at a certain point for a discussion, or just how you're going to go around, like you would go around the table reading the different passages of the Passover story, and ask people to be prepared to do that as well. And that's part of the reason why sending out the Haggadah in advance is really important. Some people will want to have a hard copy that they print out in advance. So we also here, and it'll be, again, all of this will be on our website, have found a ton of really interesting things for you to read and think about as you are in preparation, or if you get stuck in a certain area. These are, all these blue ones are links to these different articles. And the last one, in case anyone is really asking some of the more technical questions, is the Rabbinical Assembly and the United Synagogues of Conservative Judaism have put together a set of guidelines, recognizing that what Passover looks like is going to be different than usual. So if you're wondering how to really focus on some of the more technical aspects, there's some really great information here that's coming from our movement to explain where we are when it comes to halakha, to Jewish law, and how we might be adapting this year. This is something they do to an extent every year, but they've really bumped it up this year. So there's a lot that's going to be different this year. And there's a lot of different ways to go about it. In your preparation, it's important to take time to really think about what's going to make this special and make it really feel like a Seder, even though it's in a format that we've probably never used before. And we're definitely living through times that feel very different. We want to remember why we're here, why we're celebrating Passover, what the story is that's brought us together, and create those opportunities for our families to come together and our friends to come together in a very different way. So we want to, again, open this floor now for any questions. If anyone has questions, you can feel free to leave them in the chat box, and we will do our best to answer them. Really? Nobody has questions?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is somebody going to walk us through the mechanics of setting up a virtual meeting? I've never done it before, and I'm uncomfortable with just getting it set up.
Sure. Let me, hold on one second. Let me just open up the Zoom page on my computer, and then I will share my screen. Hold on one second.
So while Ben's doing that, one of the questions that came in is, how do we deal with having conversations when there's 20 people logged in? So as we said earlier, one of the things that's really important is having everyone other than the person speaking muted. Unfortunately, the technology doesn't exist, as Ben said earlier, for us to be able to all sing together. That's just the natural lag in the internet, and there are no technologies out there or ways around that. And then when you're when you have so many people together, just like we're having to take the time and take turns, it's the same idea. It's not ideal. It's not like sitting around a table over dinner. It's one of the things I've been thinking about is over dinner, it's more likely to be one conversation than several separate conversations in smaller groups around the table. I think there's something really special about that, and it's not something we get to do very often. Some of the technologies, I know Zoom does, has the ability to break people out into smaller groups. If you're feeling extremely comfortable with the technology and you want to try to play with that, that could be an option. But at the moment, I think that the information or the conversation staying in one big group is part of what might work best. And then also is something to think about in terms of how many people you're inviting. It's not always going to be the best to have the 40 people you're used to. You can do it, absolutely. You can have up to 100 people, I think, screens in Zoom. But because this is so different, this might be an opportunity to try having something at a different size.
You know, it just sounds like it's too technical, because I'm gonna be dealing with probably 5 kids under the age of 6. And it's gonna get crazy with going back to the technology. It's just, I don't know.
So I'll say that every kid I know under the of all ages really has been spending a lot of time using these technologies lately, because that's how they're connected to their schools. So they might be more comfortable with it than you are, and I imagine they're sitting with their families. It's different, and it's a challenge, and it's something to learn.
Yeah, it is, but it's a new reality.
I'm going to share. That's true. That's true. I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to show you 2 of the technologies that we were talking about. One of them is Zoom, which is the app that we're using right now. And all that you would do, I just went to zoom.us. That's the homepage for Zoom. And you can easily sign up. It's free. You'll just fill out the form and sign up for the account. Or I'm going to go ahead and sign in so that you can see what it looks like once you've created your account and you're in the meeting. So Zoom both has an app and it has their website, and you can create meetings and launch them from either one of them. And the dashboards, which is what we're in right now, look a little bit different depending on where you are. So in the app, it's going to look a little bit different than this, but here on their website, you could see that I have already set up a few meetings here in the middle. They're recurring meetings. One of them is our preschool meetup where the kids and the teachers get together. The other one is our communal Havdalah that we have every Saturday night. And then the other one is our Shabbat services, which we host in Zoom now on Friday night and Saturday morning. So I've already had those, but let's say that I want to schedule a new meeting, which is going to be our Seder. After I've logged in, I just click on schedule a new meeting. And then I just fill out this very basic form. I'd name it Seder. You don't need to give it a description. I would pick when it's going to be. It's going to be on, let's say, Wednesday night at 6 p.m. And I mean, the duration and these sorts of things don't matter quite as much because the meeting room, technically from the time that you create it, it just exists. And anybody can go into that meeting room when they have the ID number at any time unless you block them out. So it's not so important the exact time or the duration. If you were doing a recurring meeting, that gets a little bit more complicated. I wouldn't do the recurring meeting because scheduling it on here is not so easy. You don't need to require registration. You can have it automatically generate the ID. You don't have to have a password. You might want to, if you feel like you just want that extra little bit of security, you can create a password. It could just be a series of numbers or something like that. You can make it up. You can use what they give you. And then there are more settings which are also not so critical. You can leave them all as their default states, which are, will the host automatically have their video turned on? Will participants automatically have their video turned on? But they can still turn it on. It's just whether it by default has it in that state. Audio, we leave it as connecting with a phone or a computer, because that way it gives them more options. And then again, you can leave all of these the way that they are. Enabling join before host means that if you are the person who created the room and you want people to go into the room before you get there, you can set that and then be able to do that. So if you log in and you could already have a few people in the room before you. But if you're worried about security or something like that, you don't want anybody going into that room until you've opened it, then you just leave that unchecked. Mute people on entry, not so critical for small groups, but in a class like today, we really should, we would have everybody muted on entry. Or when we do our preschool meetups and we have 50 or 60 little kids coming in, we mute them on entry so that they're automatically muted. You don't really need to enable the waiting room, but that would keep people outside of your meeting, outside of your room until you're ready to let them in. And then I would just leave these the way that they are. You don't need to record your session unless you really want to, but you have a certain amount of space that you're allowed to record onto on the cloud, or you can do it onto your computer. But again, don't worry about recording it. Really, the important things are that you clicked on that link to schedule a meeting, you give it a time and a location, and then once you're done doing that, I'll go ahead and save it and I'll show you what it looks like. It's going to give you the information for the meeting. So here, it created the link right here, and that's the link that you're going to be giving to everybody so that they can join your Zoom meeting. So the numbers at the end of that link are the meeting ID numbers. This right here, the meeting ID up here, is the same as the link zoom.us/j/the same numbers. And then if you required a password, then you'll give them the password information. That's really all that they need to know. They just need to know the link, and that's all that you need to set up is this meeting with the link. So that is Zoom. And then once you start the meeting, it opens up the app and you're in the meeting just like you are right now. And clearly you all have that installed on your device because you were able to get into here. Now I'll also show you Google Hangouts. This is the other one. So if you have a Gmail account, then you automatically have the Google Hangouts. And you just go to hangouts.google.com, and that link, I believe, is in that the resource guide that we linked to from Seder 2020. So you're just going here and you're starting a video call, which I can't do because we're in the middle of a Zoom meeting. You just click on that, and then it's going to say, who do you want to call? And you're going to start typing people's names. And if you're connected to them, if you have Gmail and you're connected to them and they're in your address book, like all of these people that are listed here on the left who I've had other conversations with, you can add them to the meeting and they can turn on their video, and that's it. They don't need to download any special software, although there are apps for it on phones and iPads. But you're just gonna start a video call and it'll call them and they'll click accept and they'll be in the meeting and you can all be interacting. So those are two softwares or two apps that you might wanna look at and try out. They're like you just saw, they're not that complicated to figure out. And then I wanna show you, Alicia was talking about the virtual corkboard, which I opened up here. So we created these cork boards, and it's just like I'm dragging and dropping and moving this cork board around. And you can see we're going to post a question in the big red box on the top. And this is just a test question so that we can try out the software. What are you adding to this year's Seder that you've never done before? And then up here in the right-hand corner, you could see it's got a bunch of Post-its, and I can just take a Post-it and drop it down here and then click on it, and I can type whatever it is that I'm going to be doing. I can change the color, I can change the font, things like that, and then click post, and it adds it. And it's just like a corkboard. I can move it around like this. And so during the Seder, ahead of time, we're going to create maybe 8 to 10 of these different corkboards, and we'll have links to each one of them with a different question. So at the beginning of the Seder, maybe we'll have a question about the Seder plate. What's the most important or the most interesting part of the Seder plate? Which of the items do you think? And so then you can come on here, you can have a quick discussion in your own Seder, and come on here and you can post what you, your individual family or couple, or you as an individual thought, or on behalf of your Seder, you can post something. And then ideally, even though we're all in our separate Seders, even though I might just have a Seder with my immediate family, or just my wife, or just on my own, but I want to feel connected to the rest of the community. I don't want to feel so isolated. Our plan is that even though my Seder might start at 6 and your Seder might start at 7, we both come to these questions about the Seder plate and about the 4 questions and about Karpas and about, Avadim Hayinu, all sorts of questions that no matter when we're getting to them, and even though we are in our own individual houses, we are all able to connect by answering questions on this communal corkboard and responding to other people. Maybe our question leads you down a different path and you want to respond to somebody else's question about something else. This is just a way that without having to keep on the same schedule and without having to log into Zoom meetings, we can have some sort of a connection as a community. So that's the idea here. I posted on our Facebook group, and I'm going to post this link into our chat as soon as I'm done sharing the screen so that you can all click on it and see how it is. And it should work from any device. It should work from your computer or your phone. It'll just look a little bit different. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Take that to the chat.
Other questions? Someone, I think, has their hand raised. It would be, oh, Kevin, go ahead. I see you.
Is there a place where we could, on the temple website or somewhere, where if we're having a Seder in our home virtually, that other members of the temple can join our different home Seders? Or
Yes. So there's a link on our Passover page, or there will be, where you, it's already up on our page, and you can add it to, it will be added to the Passover page, where if you are hosting and would like to invite others that might need a virtual place to go, you can enter that information, and we will match people as that information comes through.
where do I find this at? On the Temple
So
Aliyah website?
TempleAliyah.org/Passover. And then there's a column of quick links for like right down the middle of that page. And probably the 5th or 6th item down is matching with if you want to be a host or a guest for other people.
Oh, it's here. It says, would you like to be a guest at a Seder?
Yes, it's that link. It was up before we all were sent home. So the form itself is updated, but the title is the same.
Oh, okay. I see. Got it. Never seen this before. Cool. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Kevin.
And that page, templealiyah.org/Passover, is going to be updated with all the information that we've been talking about today. So that is still very much 2019 version of the site, except we have updated the important content and details, but we will be adding a lot more virtual information there.
Any other questions?
If you have a question, you want to unmute yourself and just call it out, you can do that now. Unmute in the bottom left corner.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Linda. Yeah, some of my friends have said that their temples are having virtual seders. I think that would be very convenient for our temple if we had it. Was that considered?
Yes. So Shomrei Synagogue, we usually don't have a communal Seder. We usually join with Shomrei Torah Synagogue and they invite us. And this year they are doing a communal virtual Seder on the second night. So I have the link to it. They just basically decided that they're doing it, a day or two ago. So the link to that will be on the website, templealiyah.org/Passover, and in the email that we send out with information tomorrow, and I'll post it on Facebook. It'll be all over the place. But that is the only virtual communal Seder that we're doing. But we really encourage you, if you would normally go to a community Seder, we want to try to match you up with a family because they're all, virtual community Seders now. If you would like to be matched up with another family instead of going to just the big, massive one, then that's what we're trying to do within our community. That's why our rabbis are not hosting a virtual community Seder here.
I just want to add, we are still in the process of figuring out what we're going to be offering. So just stay tuned.
Elaine.
Thank you. I just want to say to each and every one of you have been so precise, so thorough, that you have given me a wealth of information in a simplified manner. I truly understand some of the things that I didn't know what to do, which basically is to initiate Zoom or even Google for that matter. So, and all the information that you gave about the Seder, the participation, actually everything during this session, I from my heart to you and to our Temple Aliyah community, I say thank you so much and good health and to be safe. You were absolutely wonderful. I did take notes. I took pictures with my iPhone. I'm on an iPad. And I will go on the temple site nonetheless. But I feel really comfortable and I thank you for this. This is definitely a promise and we're going forward with wonderful things. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for those kind words. It's always nice to get that feedback. Any other questions before we wrap up? Anybody can unmute themselves and ask a question. Okay, so this live stream, it is being live streamed. It will be posted. We'll include the link to this exact session in the email that we send out to everybody tomorrow and on Facebook. Rabbi Galko, any closing words?
Just want to thank you all for joining and for being part of this conversation, for bringing your questions. And I think this is a time to be creative and to really experiment with all the technological possibilities and the program possibilities. And I'm starting to think of new ideas from Ben and Alicia also for my own family Seder. So thank you, Ben and Alicia, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.